Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is my review for 24 Live Another Day, episode 10, and wow, this episode was amazing. Last week's episode, I wasn't so happy about them, changing the villain aspect and everything, but you know what? It really paid off in this episode, because this was the best episode of the season, in my opinion. I thought this episode was very well done. I really enjoyed this episode. And I just thought it was a very good episode. I really enjoyed it overall. So, let's just get to this episode, because overall I thought it was a really great episode. So basically, Kate gets a call from Jack for help, and he tells her Navarro had killed Jordan, and had Jordan killed, and he says he couldn't confront him, and then Navarro stole the device. He tells her that the device can be used on multiple military systems, and even ones from other countries. He's in pursuit, and tells Kate to track him and send a TAC team unit. So Navarro calls Adrey and confirms that he has the unit. He tells him to meet him at Liverpool Stadium, and Adrey says arrangements have been made. Arrangements have been made to get him out of the country, and Navarro asks for assurance. And if the Adrey says it's his choice, but he'll get the death penalty if the Americans get him. And Chloe asks Adrey what's going on. He says it's his device and he's taking it back. He says Yates stole it from him to use for terrorism. And Adrey says we'll save millions of lives. He says they're going to exploit the vulnerabilities in firewalls by sharing them so that no one's weapon will be any good if everyone's weapons are wide open. So Chloe says the device at CIA, and Adrey says Navarro took it and is on the way with it. So he says he had to give files to the Chinese to pay for the operation, but it's worth the cost. He says it's a word she would have wanted from Prescott and tells her to have faith. He says they're so close, takes her in his arms, but she looks concerned. He asks if she's with him, and she says yes. Gavin then calls Jack and says Navarro shut down the access to the CCTV cameras all around. He's trying to get them back up, and Jack finds Navarro, who turns and fires at him. They exchange fire, and it's a foot race. Right away, very intense shit going on. Jack is closing in, but then loses him. Navarro gets away, and Jack says a street sign to figure out where he went. Navarro is actually sent to a cement mixer to retrieve an envelope. He's told to drop the device and go. He asks where his car is, but there's no answer. And Chloe and Adrey pick up the device and walk away. Navarro goes running in a panic. The TAC team surrounds Navarro, knocks Navarro down, asks where the device is. They cuff him, and Jack goes off running looking for it. So he sees someone with a bag over their shoulder, and he goes off on a run. Chloe and Adrey are headed to the tube, and Jack is closing in on them. He runs down the escalator, shoving people left and right. Chloe and Adrey take their seats, and the door closes. Jack runs to the train car. He sees Adrey and Chloe, calls out to Chloe, but she doesn't hear or see him. She's not happy, though. So Jack calls in and tells the CIA to track the train that just left Liverpool Stadium, and Jack is told that the train's emergency brake was triggered, and they got off. So Kate calls, and Jack says Navarro gave the device to Adrey Cross, and says that Chloe was with him. So Kate says that doesn't make sense, and they wonder if Chloe was playing them, and Jack says he can't be sure, and says he's bringing Navarro back to CIA. So Kate tells Rittler he's the ranking officer now. He calls her attention and tells the CIA staff that Navarro had been arrested for the theft of the device and Jordan's murder. He tells them getting the device back is priority number one, and Kate asks Gavin to check Jordan's system to see if there's something he's working on that triggered Navarro to kill him. So Heller then has a drink when Adrey comes in, says he can't mix alcohol with his medication, and she says Air Force One is the tarmac fueled and ready, and he says he came over there to keep their drone basis, and he's going back with nothing, but lives on his conscience. And Adrey says he shouldn't blame himself. He tells Adrey, tell the Secret Service that he's ready to go and should notify the VP that he's ready to make the announcement and he should be ready to take over. So Mark comes in and says Rittler from the CIA needs to talk to him now. Rittler tells him the device was stolen, that Adrey Cross has it, and that the station chief, Navarro, stole it. Rittler says the device is far more dangerous than they knew. The device can penetrate the firewall of most countries' defense systems, and Heller tells him to fully support Jack and keep him posted. So they really want to help. So Heller really wants to help Jack here, and Heller tells Mark to stand down Air Force One, give him a full report from DOD on possible countermeasures, and Gavin tells Kate that Jordan was restoring files that Navarro deleted that had classified materials that Kate's husband supposedly leaked, and Kate asks if Navarro framed her husband. He says yes, and Kate is stunned by this. Navarro is then brought in, and Kate heads from in attack mode, but Riddler tells her to stay down and go to her office. Jack asks what that was about, and Riddler fills him in. He says they're sending Navarro down to enhanced interrogation, but Jack says he was trained to resist those. Jack says he won't be afraid of them, but says to give Navarro to him because he knows his history. And Riddler says if he crossed the line, he's pulling him. So Jack says he's not asking. He goes to Kate. She's in tears at this point. Jack walks closer and says her husband's name is cleared. She says that's too late because her husband hung himself a month into his life sentence, all because Navarro framed him, and she thought he was her friend. So it's really big that Navarro has turned on them now. I mean, now I kind of like this twist Navarro's turned on them. So Jack tells her he's going to interrogate Navarro and tells her to decide if she wants to step aside. They've got Navarro hooked up to the machines, and Jack says he doesn't need biometrics. Riddler tells him to remember the ground rules, and Jack scoffs and goes in. Kate wants to observe and is told she can, and Riddler is also watching. So Jack comes in, tells the guard to take off Navarro's restraints and give them a room. This next scene was really, really awesome. I really love this interrogation scene. Jack tells him he knows the drill, but he's going to lay it out. He's selling secrets to Chinese, stole a device, killed an agent, and framed another. He says there's only one outcome, which is the death penalty. Unless he cooperates with them, unless he cooperates, then he can have a life. And Navarro says he never knew he was dealing with Adrian Cross, but can help them find a device in exchange for complete immunity, no negotiations, and Navarro says it's a weapon of mass destruction. Jack asks again where it is, and Navarro says he knows Riddler won't let him hurt him, and Navarro says he's wasting time and says to get him immunity. Jack says that option is not on the table. He says your hand is, and then crushes it to pieces with a gun. They haul Jack out. Riddler says they have to make the case for immunity, get the device back. And at 8:26, they haul Navarro out to medical for treatment because he got his hand crushed, obviously. So, yeah. Kate curses at her ex-boss that she and Jack stand glaring at where he went. And Mark tells Ron to drop an immunity agreement for Navarro. He says the AG needs to sign off on it, and Ron does not like it, but Mark says to take care of it. And Adrey stands glaring at Mark, and he's distracted for a moment. Ron heads off to take care of it, and Mark goes to Adrey, and she says she's sorry for snapping at him earlier. And Mark says it's okay, and she says she knows her dad put him in an impossible situation. But Mark says it's not about that, and this was a really big moment, and I'm really interested in seeing where this is gonna go. He says the moment Jack showed up, something changed for her. She says she and Jack were a long time ago. Mark says there are obvious unresolved feelings between them. She says she's committed to him, and he says he's not on obligation. She gets mad and marches out. So, do you think possibly that Jack and Adrey still have feelings for each other? I think they do. I just think they do. Mark then calls the Russian and says they can't have Jack. He says the State Department will know that he forged the signature on the rendition order and says he'll be going to jail. Mark says they can find Jack. He says he has Jack's encrypted comm-linked code and says they can pick him up in the field. The Russian says no one will know of his involvement if they can get him. And Chell calls Adrian, says he'll be operational in 20 minutes. She asks if he's told Chloe everything, and he says he has. They go to the car, and Chloe puts her stuff in the car, but then tells him that she has to go pee, and he tells her he'll wait, and she then walks up to a porta potty, waves down a truck, and Adrian shoots out the truck window and snatches the device from her hands. Honestly, that was a very good plan. It was a very good way to do that. So she asks why he would think this would work. She says giving weapons to everyone is no answer. He tells her to get in the car. She asks if he's asking or telling, and he says she knows the answer. He marches her off to the car. Navarro asks for pain medicine. The doctor says no. Late comes in to the clinic with a gun out. She tells the security and doctor to get on their knees. And Navarro says she shouldn't do this, and she bashed him with the gun. He says if she kills him, the CIA will never get the device back. So Jack comes in, Navarro calls out to her. Jack holds a gun on Kate, and Navarro says the device has a trucker code. And he yells it out as Kate holds the gun to his head and threatens him. As soon as he yells out the code, Kate asks Jack if he got it, and Gavin confirms he did. Kate and Jack's bad cop, worst cop scam worked. They walk out and leave him in the med bay. So their plan basically worked. So Gavin starts the trace and says it looks legit. Jack says it worked and walks out. It's 8:37 and Kate tells Navarro she's going to watch when he's executed for treason. So Jack tells Riddler that Kate broke Navarro and they have look on the device. Colbert and the military reps give Heller an option on the, an update on the device's capabilities. Mark comes in with the immunity agreement, and Heller says they don't need it. He says that Jack and the CIA are heads to the device, and Mark is horrified to know that Jack is involved. That means the Russians are heads of the device, too. So Kate and Jack are together with several tag teams for backup. He asks if she's okay. Kate says the last time she saw her husband, they were working on his appeal, and she says her heart was broken. And when he realized she didn't believe he was innocent, she says that was the moment he decided to take his life because she deserted him. And she asks how she can live with that. And it's really sad, honestly, because Jack says you just do. He told her that 4 years ago his friend was killed, and he took as much revenge as he could, and it cost him his family and everything else, but it didn't ease the pain. And he says in her heart she has to accept it and begin to forgive herself. And that's a really big scene, because I guess this was something that happened on the show. You know, his friend died and everything. And Adrey and Chloe head into Open Cell's new op center. He says it used to be a college tech lab that closed. And she asks if everyone knows what he's going to do with the device. And he says yes. And when they come in, they find all of Open Cell has been shot and killed. She runs to Stas, who is still dying. Adrian tells her they have to go now. Then the Chinese show up, a guy named Chang, and Adrian tells him to take the device. Adrian asks why he did it. Chang says that Adrian caused this by trying to give away the device to the world. And Chloe tells Adrian that Chang doesn't work for the Chinese government anymore. Adrian is shocked that Chloe knows him. Chang tells Chloe it's been a while since he's seen her, for those that don't remember. And this kind of goes back a couple seasons ago when Jack broke into the Chinese embassy and accidentally killed someone. The Chinese government sent Chang after him, and he had Jack kidnapped, and then Adrey went to China to save Jack. Instead, she was kidnapped by Chang, who then faked her death. So meanwhile, Jack was released to the U.S. to then hand him over to a terrorist group that wanted him. When Jack got away from them and stopped the attack, he then found out Adrey was alive and rescued her from the Chinese. Then her dad told Jack to stay away from his daughter because he's cursed and everyone he loves dies. So Jack agreed and let her alone, although she was a mental basket case for her imprisonment in China. That's the backstory on Chang. He knows Chloe is Jack's sidekick and partner in crime. So Chang knows Chloe very well because of that whole encounter. So Chang's men set up the devices. Adrian asks Chloe who Chang really is. He says he was Chinese intelligence who ran the consulate in L.A. His country had him arrested. He's wanted by his country, and he kidnapped and tortured Jack and Adrey. Chloe says he's crazy for working with him. Chang wants to know why the device was changed, and he explains it was modified to focus on U.S. drones. And Chang tells Chloe that she can fix it, and she refuses. He shoots Adrian in the leg, says the next one will go into his brain. And she agrees and is led over by the computer station to get to work. Really intense right now, because Mark leaves a Russian message telling him to not apprehend Jack and to call him. Jack calls Gavin, who says he has a lock on it. Riddler tells Jack not to hesitate to call him back up out of concern for Chloe. But Jack snaps back that the device is his priority and to focus on his job. Chloe works on the device. Chang pressures her on time. She wants to know why he wants it, and he won't say, but pressures her. He tells her to get up, and she's dragged away. The text says he can take it from there, and Chang knows she planted a virus while she was in there. They were watching her screen on a screen that mirrored hers. So Adrian tells Chloe that they won't get out of this alive, and he says he needs to tell her about her husband and son. He says he found some documents a year ago that showed their deaths were simply an accident, and that no one was trying to kill her, and got her family instead. She asks why he would keep it from her, and he says he didn't want her to leave. He says he would have told her eventually, because the truth is always best. She tells him all his work and truth has led to this. He says he doesn't regret what he stood for. So he lied to Chloe, and basically no one was trying to kill her. It was her family. So that's not good, obviously. So yeah, Chang is in the Naval Command interface and tells his tech to draft the order, and he says he has no more use for Adrian, shoots him in the head. So Adrian's now dead, and Jack tells Riddler to hold the tag teams back so they're not seen on satellite. And Riddler agrees to hold them 2 miles back, but then a car crash indicates side of the car crushing the car. And basically, Riddler hears and calls out to them asking what happened. They don't respond. Jack and Kate are still alive. They hear the Russians, and one says make sure they're dead. Kate and Jack come out shooting. There's a firefight between them and the Russian. Chloe watches as the Chinese tech types out a command to the USS Massachusetts, a nuclear sub from U.S. Strategic Command, and Chloe asks what the order is, but Chang tells them to send it on the Massachusetts. They get the order, open the safe and the encryption key. The order says to fire and sink the Chinese carrier, Shane, and the order was confirmed by Stratcom, so he preps the torpedo tubes, take aim at the Chinese military vessel, and they fire 2 torpedoes. Jack and Kate are still fighting for their lives, and at 9 p.m. the torpedoes hit the ship, and it's blown to pieces. Chloe's horrified as she and Chang watch the ship, and so the ship was bombed. And that was the end of the episode. So, I have a couple questions. What's going to happen now with Navarro? You know, we're going to have to see what happens here. It's going to be very, very interesting. We're going to see what happens with Adrian. Of course, Adrian was dead, so what's going to happen with Chang, too? So yeah, what's gonna happen with Chang? It's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. Now that Chloe knows Chang very well, so we'll have to see what happens there as well. Does Adrey still have feelings for Jack? I'm wondering if she does. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this episode. Overall, best episode of the season. I absolutely loved it. Lots of violence in this episode. But we have 2 episodes left of this mini-series, which is going to be really awesome. That's been my review. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which will be my review for Teen Wolf. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.